for 4 days.
As a mother, you think about what if you were in that situation.
Out of their homes since a deadly fire, residents of a North York high-rise are getting some support from their community. The fire broke out Friday around the supper hour, engulfing a number of floors in the high-rise near Jane and Steeles. The cause remains under investigation tonight, and it's still unclear when residents will be allowed to return to the building. Ali Shahsan is live outside the high-rise on Gosford Boulevard. And Ali, there's some new information tonight about the man who lost his life in that fire.
That's right. So we just learned the cause of death for the man who was found on the 8th floor balcony the next day. He died of smoke inhalation. Now, as for the cause of the fire, we won't know those answers for at least weeks, maybe even months to come. And in the meantime, people are just trying to get inside to get some clothes. That's what we're here for. 3 days without a change of clothes. Residents meet at the caution tape just to be told they can't come in yet.
I had to send an email to management, and that's very frustrating for both of us, me and my girlfriend.
Management and Toronto Fire say it's still too dangerous with the water and potential structural damage. People are feeling desperate.
We're renting a room nearby. We use Airbnb.
How are you going to be compensated? Do you know?
I have no idea. That's why I'm frustrated and angry right now. I had to go to work today because I have to go to work. Right? And I don't have my boots and stuff. I have to borrow from friends. And I just been wearing the same clothes, inside out, everything for 4 days, right? And we don't have money. We just paid rent.
Out of the 700 people who called 235 Gosford home, about 100 are still staying in shelter, supported by the Red Cross and regular people like Thea Jackson.
I have 3 children myself, so I sympathize tremendously.
Can you show us a little bit of what you have?
Sure. A wonderful lady actually donated some suits that she had, and there's a family that I will be meeting with that I'll be giving those to. We have adult clothing in here. All the children's stuff was handed out yesterday.
So you have some suit material as well.
Yeah.
How did you get this stuff?
I posted on social media, and I just had so many people reach out. At the end of the day, I hope that people remember that there are good people in this world, that this really could happen to any one of us. And if you have a little, you can give a little.
And the people who lost everything at least have their lives. That's more than can be said for one man who died on the 8th floor balcony. To that, the fire chief was almost at a loss for words.
We had crews working on every floor, moving door to door, for the sole purpose of completing search and rescue operations. It's certainly a tough night.
In the absence of a lot of answers here, the fire chief had some advice for people who live in high-rise apartment buildings in case a fire breaks out. So if the fire alarm goes off inside your building and you don't smell smoke or you don't see any flames or any of that in your unit, then it's safe to call 911 from inside and await the advice of the authorities. Now, if the fire is inside of your apartment unit and you smell the smoke, the advice is to get out as soon as possible and call 911 from outside of the building. Now, as for this scene here, people won't be allowed in, even via escort, for at least a few more days. Dwight.
It's going to be really difficult for those residents. Thank you for that, Ali.
You got it.
Police in Hong Kong have tightened their siege at a university where hundreds of demonstrators have been holed up since the weekend. Protesters have been using fire bombs, even bows and arrows to repel officers. Grace Lee now with the latest.
For 2 full days, protesters at Hong Kong's Polytechnic University have been facing off with police. Messages from inside the campus say they're running out of supplies, food, and time. But for many, being captured by police simply isn't an option. Some have turned to drastic measures. Videos online show protesters scaling a bridge with ropes and hopping onto awaiting motorcycles in an attempt to escape the police siege on campus. Riot police have been standing guard around the university throughout the day, blocking protesters from leaving the site. They're leaving those inside with only one option: turn themselves in and face a potential 10-year jail sentence on riot charges.
they always claim they want to fight a better future, then please come out and face the consequence of your action.
Clashes began at the campus Sunday afternoon, and violence continued overnight. Police even threatened to open fire on protesters with live ammunition, signaling a whole new escalation to the city's months-long pro-democracy protests.
I would warn the rioter, don't test our bottom line. And if we have to respond, I believe the only option is to use deadly weapon.
A small group turned themselves into police custody at around midnight, but others continued to resist. Thousands took to the streets in solidarity this afternoon as parents and concerned residents called for the release of besieged, largely student protesters. Police responded with tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets. Grace Lee, CBC News, Hong Kong.
The Canadian government says they are concerned for the 300,000 Canadians currently living in Hong Kong. York, U of T, and Ryerson all are encouraging their students to leave the city. Kelda Ewan spoke to some U of T students today, all with close ties to Hong Kong.
Here at the University of Toronto St. George campus, this group of students has been following the situation closely. Eric Tiao's girlfriend is a U of T exchange student studying at the Chinese University of Hong Kong.
She described it as like a war zone almost. A lot of the streets are broken. There's been a lot of barricades being set up.
The school was the scene of the first campus clash last Tuesday, with police firing tear gas and rubber bullets at masked protesters, who in turn started fires and threw petrol bombs.
She's had to run a lot, I would say that. There's been a lot of fear for sure.
Jonathan Wong was in Hong Kong just a few months ago, protesting on the street.
Desperate's probably the main emotion. Lots of friends were tear gassed. That's like a routine thing at this point. There's a sense of powerlessness and just genuine terror, I guess. We don't know what the future will bring. There's so much uncertainty regarding the situation.
Meanwhile, Sam Mann is an exchange student from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He says watching his fellow classmates get besieged caused more than a few sleepless nights.
I feel so helpless.
But despite the violence, he wishes he were there.
Here I can do nothing, but in Hong Kong I can at least do something, and I can stay with my friends, and at least I can ensure they are safe.
Freedom to say what
Wong
you want without
feels the same.
Quite a bit of guilt, I feel like a lot of us here in Toronto wish we could be back with our friends and family so we can be there to support them, to protest with them.
I think they're fighting for their own autonomy and, again, their own democracy. And they're fighting against essentially a totalitarian kind of regime where the government is reflected by the actions of the police.
U of T says it currently has 20 students studying on exchange in Hong Kong, but none at Hong Kong Polytechnic, where the ongoing clashes are happening. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Talia Ricci, and you might have started to notice some new material at your local dispensaries. They're part of a national campaign to educate the public on edibles. We'll tell you all about it coming up.
More Ontario teachers have moved closer to job action tonight. Members of the Secondary School Teachers Federation have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike. This as the Ford government is encouraging all the unions to accept mediation. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley now with the latest.
A day of battling news conferences between the Education Minister and the Secondary Teachers Federation as contract talks with Ontario's three big teachers' unions head toward crunch time.
We've tabled some pretty important moves, and we haven't had much movement on their end.
We wish the minister would invest as much energy in trying to get a deal as he puts into positioning the Ford government for a possible strike.
A couple of questions about the settings in the studio.
A strike by high school teachers is one step closer to reality today, as OSSTF members gave their union a 95% strike vote. The union could issue 5 days' notice of job action any time now, but the OSSTF president is waiting to see what happens in bargaining this week.
My hope remains that we can actually make some progress at the table over the next, 3.5 days now.
So this is actually called...
The union wants a wage increase to match inflation. The province wants to cap wage hikes at 1%. The teachers also want the government to scrap all increases to class size and hold off on its plan that all high school students take 4 courses online.
They're still talking about using our students as guinea pigs in this e-learning experiment that's been tried nowhere else in the world.
We're going to continue to make...
Education Minister Stephen Lecce is proposing to bring mediators into all sets of contract talks.
I think it's worth the try. Parents deserve us looking at every tool in the toolbox to get deals, and this is why mediation seems prudent, because it's going to help, in my estimation, keep the kids of this province in class.
The Catholic Teachers Union OECTA say their talks hit an abrupt roadblock on Friday when the government's negotiating team announced they were being replaced.
I have been doing this for nearly 20 years. I have never seen that happen before, ever.
So, talks with Catholic teachers are at an impasse. The high school teachers are now in a legal strike position, and the elementary teachers are poised to start a work to rule campaign next Tuesday if they don't get a deal by then. It all means this next week is going to be crucial for education bargaining and for the Ford government. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Medical professionals gathered near Queen's Park today, and they're asking the Ontario government to reinstate paid sick days and eliminate required doctor's notes.
Right now, we know that workers are going to work sick because they can't afford to take the day off of work. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and this is going to be a huge risk, especially for the flu season that we know is going to be quite harsh.
The Ford government is sending people into busy doctors' offices, into overcrowded emergency departments, just to get documentation that they had the flu, that they had a cold, which absolutely stresses our health system.
The previous Liberal government added 2 paid sick days, which the Ford government reversed. This group is asking for 7 paid sick days, saying 2 still wouldn't give people enough time to get better. They also want the government to cancel the requirement for sick notes for minor illnesses. Steps away at Queen's Park today, the Labour Minister deflected questions about sick days.
Will the acting Premier reverse the decision regarding sick notes for minor illnesses?
I'm proud to stand up every day in the House to talk about our record in the last 16 months when it comes to standing shoulder to shoulder with workers.
Will this government listen to healthcare professionals who overwhelmingly agree that asking people to get a sick note for a minor illness is not only a waste of resources, it is dangerous?
As I said in the first question, in 16 months, Mr. Speaker, over 250,000 new jobs have been created.
The flu typically begins spreading in late fall. Earlier this year, the health minister said they expected this flu season to be very difficult.
It's like picking a scab. It hurts. Over and over again.
Losing $800,000 in an email scam. Now the retiree is filing a lawsuit against his bank, who transferred the money despite red flags. We'll bring you his story coming up a little later in the show. The list of accusations against a Toronto woman described by police as a professional fraudster is getting longer tonight. A recent CBC Toronto investigation outlined 20 cases of identity theft, all allegedly by the same woman. And our story has now led to warrants in Quebec. John Lancaster has this update.
Police in the Montreal suburb of Longueuil had been looking for Deborah Ogunti-Yinbo for months. The 26-year-old is currently behind bars in the GTA, facing 50 identity theft-related charges. Essentially, she's accused of racking up big bills, including the purchase of cars and leasing homes, including a condo in this Markham high-rise, in other people's names. Police allege she's stolen 20 identities and destroyed people's credit ratings. Quebec authorities had no idea where she was until seeing the CBC reports.
I was happy to be able to execute my 2 warrants because I was looking for her and there was no valid address for her.
Police in Longueuil allege Ogunti-Yinbo drove to Quebec and, using the stolen identity of an Ontario woman, bought a used Mercedes-Benz. She's also accused of passing a forged driver's license to register that vehicle, trying to sell it a few days later before leaving the province. This is a copy of the allegedly forged $24,500 bank draft Oguntoyinbo is accused of using to buy the car. Longueuil police have charged her with identity theft, impersonation, and possession of forged documents. They hope to have her returned to Quebec once her GTA charges are dealt with. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
If you weren't up early enough to catch the sunrise this morning, this is what you missed. Some great images of an intense orange sky captured and shared on social media today. Some photos show the city enveloped in a stunning pink. There it is. The only complaint, it didn't last long enough. And Colette, our beautiful shot behind you right there. Is there a reason why our sky was so beautiful this morning?
Yeah, hey, Mother Nature has her own set of filters she likes to put on there, right? Yeah, for sure there's a reason. First of all, sunrise. So the sun was a little further away on the horizon than when it's directly overhead, although at this time of year it's not exactly directly overhead in the winter. We do get crisper colors too in the winter with less haze, but we know that when you even see white light, it contains all the colors of the spectrum in there, but they have different wavelengths. So each color has a different length to it in terms of it coming to our eyes. When we see blue skies, that's because that's a shorter wavelength, and when it's overhead, then we're going to see those shorter wavelengths. Violet as well, but our eyes don't see that quite so well as it sees the blue. Now, when you're talking about that sun and light coming through the atmosphere from farther away, it's got dust particles, pollutants, all these kind of things that scatter out those shorter wavelengths, and the longer ones, like the reds and the oranges, reach our eye, and that's why we kind of see this. But there was something else that was going on here, and that is we also get refraction. So that's when light goes through different mediums. So let's say it goes from air into water, like a raindrop, say, or how about a snowflake when there's a crystal, and that also is scattering our light. So just lighting up the sky, absolutely beautiful there. And speaking of some of that mixed precipitation that those light rays were kind of bouncing off of and refracting and bending through, we still have a bit of a mix. Closer to the lakeshore it tends to be more the showery activity, getting into light wet snow a little further north with some light accumulations. Now, as the temperature falls towards zero overnight tonight, we may get into a little bit of freezing drizzle in here. Also some patchy fog, reducing visibility. The main roads should be okay because they have been treated, but some other areas, early morning hours with a little bit of freezing and some sidewalks, just use a little extra caution there. In terms of those temperatures, like I said, towards freezing overnight tonight, we get not seasonal, but we're above again tomorrow, 3 degrees, Dwight.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
A provincial tribunal has ruled in favor of Toronto's plan to put stricter regulations on the city's short-term rental market. Under the rules, the city will require operators to live at the home they list on sites such as Airbnb and have to register this with the city in order to rent it out. Now, the rules are designed to increase the availability of long-term rentals by decreasing the number of homes on sites like Airbnb and VRBO. Those companies will now have to pay a one-time licensing fee of $5,000 plus $1 for each night booked through their platform. Mayor John Tory released a statement saying that this is good news for Toronto residents, adding that it will help regulate short-term rentals and keep our neighborhoods livable. On October 17th, cannabis edibles, topicals, and extracts were legalized, but they are not in stores yet. License holders have submitted their products for review, and we are now 1 month from that period being up. Talia Ritchie has more on how shops and producers are preparing.
Edibles like chocolates, mints, and gummies are on the way. As customers wait for the day they can buy them, dispensaries are getting educated on how to sell them.
We're doing product knowledge pretty much on a daily basis for the team right now. Come in, spend an hour working with the crew, talking about the effects, talking about what to expect when the new items come.
Distributor and producer Aurora Cannabis has launched a national education campaign, partnering with retail stores across the country, providing material for these stores that's accessible online, but also in physical posters and brochures.
First time we created a print run of about 25,000. It was gone in a day. A couple things that are in here. are really just ensuring that consumers really lock up their edibles and keep them really safely away from pets and of course from kids. Super important. And also understanding a little bit of the dosing effects.
Selling responsibly is top of mind for both Aurora and retail stores like this one. They say edibles will be much different than what's out there now.
I think edibles are probably one of the hardest to consume products out there for cannabis. People are inexperienced with how they affect, how they onset.
Consumers have had a variety of experiences with edibles already.
I've taken a lot and never really had any negative experience, but I've also never really had like a significant high from them compared to something that I've smoked.
I think that it's really good because I've had 2 C-sections. I get a lot of pain.
And among the many questions coming in from curious cannabis users,
The biggest one we get is when are they going to be here?
According to Health Canada, December 16th is the earliest date we could potentially start to see new products in stores and online. But we reached out to the Ontario Cannabis Store today, and they say they're preparing to begin distribution early January. OCS also says as we get closer to product availability, we'll start to see more educational material on their website. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Very excited. Yeah. I'm Yelena Adzik. Look who I just happened to find at the Giller Prize. Misha Brucker-Gossman. How are you feeling?
I'm very excited. I got my table tag. I'm at table 17, which is going to be the best table.
She gets to go have food. Get out of here. You enjoy yourself. We'll see you soon. I'm going to come back and talk to Margaret Atwood. We'll see you in a moment.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Canada's most lucrative literary award is handed out tonight. The Giller Prize is presented to the author of the year's best work in Canadian fiction. Besides the title, it also comes with a $100,000 prize. Yelena Adzik is live on the red carpet for us tonight, just outside the Four Seasons in Yorkville. And Yelena, you and I talk about this all the time, how we love living in a country where we celebrate our authors like this.
Absolutely. You know, Dwight, it's really a thrill to be here. And I have to tell you that all of the authors just walked the red carpet. So we're able to gather a few different interviews for you. And I think we'll start out with Ian Williams. Now, this is an author who wrote the book Reproduction. As I'm talking, I'm going to get our control room to just scroll through a bunch of the different titles so that you can make notes and take some of the book titles down if you've got a book club. And in the meantime, as I talk about Ian Williams and Reproduction, you know, this is an author who is based out west, but he ended up getting his PhD in English at the University of Toronto. And, you know, when he was here just moments ago on the red carpet, it was so sweet because I asked him a question about simply what he was feeling. And he talked a little bit about how it was strange that it would be difficult to put into words. Have a listen.
There are no words exactly, and I mean all of us here like deal in traffic in words, and I think we've got pretty good vocabularies, but there are no words for exactly what this feeling is, right? And part of it is this feeling like the six of us won't be together after this night, right? So there's like these mixed feelings that happen, yeah.
So Stephen Price is another author who was walking on the red carpet. Now, Dwight, you're going to love this story because he just happens to be the husband of author Essie Adujan. I know you love her writing, and she won last year. And so I asked him, all right, well, did your wife give you any advice for tonight? And we talked a little bit about what it all means. Have a listen.
Well, she said, have fun. That was her big advice. Just have fun, be yourself, enjoy it. I think it changes a writer's life. I think it changes the idea that you have when you're working on a book that there's somebody out there who wants to read it. Yeah, and that matters a lot. That means a lot to a writer.
A lot of the authors, they seemed genuinely touched by the fact that, you know, now that they're up for this Giller Prize, even if they don't win, there's so much more exposure, so there's a chance that we'll really read their words. Now, another person who's here tonight, but actually not nominated this year, so it's a bit of a scandal. I'm just being a little facetious, but Margaret Atwood, she was here tonight to support, even though her book didn't end up making it on the list, but she didn't really care because guess what? She is celebrating her 80th birthday tonight, and I had a chance to ask her a little bit about that. Have a listen.
I think it's a lovely way to spend my birthday as long as I don't get force-fed too much cake. It's kind of already happened. So we'll hope there won't be too much more.
I don't see the problem. I would love it if someone force-fed me cake, but you know, everybody's to themselves, you know. She was really in good spirits tonight and just here to support everybody else. So overall, I think as people are walking in right now to have their dinner and the awards are about to get underway, I think that people are probably most excited about the fact that shortly they're going to be entertained by Jan Arden. Not Jan Arden the musician, but Jan Arden the host, and very, very funny lady. She just always brings it, so it's just great that she's going to be hosting this year. And Dwight, of course, a good reminder that this is all going to be on CBC, also on CBC Gem and on radio. So it's just a fabulous night for book lovers everywhere.
It really is, and we can't wait to read the winner and some of the others too. Thank you, Yelena.
See you soon.
This quiet residential street in the East End has seen a lot of coyotes recently. In fact, one of the sightings ended tragically over the weekend when 2 coyotes attacked a dog. I'm Natalie Nanowski, and I'll have that story coming up.
An East York couple is warning others after coyotes killed their dog over the weekend. It happened near St. Clair and O'Connor in the couple's backyard. Natalie Nanowski is in their community tonight. So, Natalie, what exactly happened there?
Dwight, it was early Saturday morning. Ashley Martin came down. She decided to make herself some coffee and let her dog just outside in the backyard like she always has. The backyard is completely fenced in, so she didn't really worry at all. A few minutes later, she looked through the window to see 2 coyotes surrounding her dog. She ran outside, grabbed her pup, and called her partner to chase out the dogs.
I chased them out like Tarzan. I went out in my underwear and I was like, get out of here. I started clapping at them. They ran for the corner and 3 attempts to jump at the 6-foot fence. They failed the first 2 and they both managed to get it the 3rd jump and were just running along the fence line. I was like, okay. And I ran inside instantly because, I mean, I want to save my dog, you know? Like, at that point, I'm just like, can I resuscitate him? Can I do anything?
Unfortunately, they weren't able to save their 2-year-old bulldog. He was dead. Right now, Dwight, the family, they're just really traumatized by everything that happened, and they won't let their other dog out in the backyard.
Okay, I heard him say that to get out of the backyard that the coyotes tried to jump the fence. Is that then how they got into their backyard?
That's probably it, Dwight. Their fence, it's a brand new fence. It's about 1.5 meters tall. It's very sturdy. There are no holes, so they're not exactly sure how the animals got inside. Also, the family doesn't back onto a ravine, a park, or a forest, anything like that. They back onto other homes. So they're really quite puzzled as to how all of this happened. However, this area is about a 20 to 15-minute walk to a ravine. And there have been quite a few sightings in this area. We do have some video of that. There's a coyote seen walking, pacing back and forth behind a fence. We spoke to the city and they say that they've received about 8 coyote calls this year from this ward alone. So they're really warning anyone right now, those who go outside and walk their dog, to remember to keep their dogs on a leash. Even when they let their dogs outside, they should be supervised. They're also warning people to remember to not feed the coyotes because they will come back to areas if they are fed. The family, as you mentioned, Dwight, they are speaking out because they want to really warn everyone. Their bulldog was about 30 pounds, so it wasn't a tiny dog, and it was rather sturdy. So they're saying that this could happen to another dog or worse, a child. Dwight?
Yeah, important to...
A child. Dwight?
Yeah, important to sound that alarm tonight. Thank you, Natalie. Charges have been dismissed against climate protesters who shut down the Bloor Viaduct recently. But before their court case today, many of those charged held another protest.
I am angry because the reality is that I'm being tried as a criminal because I want justice, climate justice, and justice for Indigenous people, and justice for the animals, and I'm being treated like a criminal.
About 20 members of the group Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion were at the College Park courthouse to face mischief charges. The Crown decided it would not be in the public interest to go ahead with the case. The charges stem from a peaceful protest in October that shut down the viaduct. Eventually, police moved in and made nearly 24 arrests.
We think that legal charges and criminal charges perhaps are worthwhile, but not everyone needs to do that. People can do activism from home, they can do outreach, simple outreach, but you can just see the amount of support that we're getting because people know that what we're doing is right.
Some of those at today's protests say they'll continue to use civil disobedience to get their message out. A Toronto Catholic School Board trustee is coming under fire tonight for remarks he made at a recent board meeting. At the time, the board was debating giving broader protections from discrimination to LGBTQ students. That's when trustee Mike Del Grande said the board should also consider making it even broader by considering a long list of sexual preferences, many of them illegal. Mike Wise joins us now with more on this. And Mike, there's now a petition to have Del Grande removed as a trustee.
That's right, Dwight. The petition is accusing the trustee of abusing his platform after what it calls an out-of-touch display of unprofessional conduct. Now, this all came amid a debate by Toronto Catholic School Board trustees over adding 4 new terms to a list of prohibited grounds for discrimination. This is something mandated by the province. Those 4 terms: family status, marital status, gender expression, and gender identity. Now, there are concerns by many Catholic educators that gender identity is against Catholic teaching. Now, Trustee Del Grande, who is a former Toronto City Councillor, we tried to make a slippery slope argument or an appeal to the extreme, saying, why stop at just adding those 4 terms? Why not add plenty more? Take a listen.
Transvestite, a person who dresses in a style or manner traditionally associated with the opposite sex. Bestiality, sexual relations between a human and an animal. Zoophilia, a paraphilia in which sexual gratification is derived from fantasies or acts involving animals.
Now, he goes on reading, including terms like pedophilia and vampirism. He said he had a list of 100, but was eventually stopped by other trustees, then reminded by the board chair that it cannot be seen as supporting acts that are against the law. So he withdrew the amendment. Now, we reached Del Grande, and he says he wasn't serious about this and that critics are misinterpreting what he meant.
I was tongue-in-cheek trying to indicate that, what categories do you then add further down the line? Are people going to be upset that you didn't include or missed them out? And
now, there are just over 100 names on the petition calling for his removal. However, the school board says it hasn't received any formal complaints about Del Grande's conduct, nor is it launching a review. Dwight?
Thank you, Mike. Donald Trump said today that he will strongly consider testifying at his own impeachment hearings, while in the same tweet he called the whole thing a no due process hoax. The U.S. president was responding to these comments from the Speaker of the House.
The president could come right before the committee and speak all the truth that he wants. He has every opportunity to present his case.
It's not clear whether Trump will actually end up testifying, but we are expecting to hear from 8 witnesses this week, including the man considered the star witness. That's Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Alexander Vindman from the National Security Council will also answer questions, as will Kurt Volker, former special representative to Ukraine. Started to break up some ice this weekend, Colette. Then I remembered you said a warm-up was coming, so I stopped.
Yeah, and weren't you glad?
Because it's melting.
Yeah, exactly. So many areas where, hey, you can't even see it anymore. In the parks, just seeing all those leaves again. We still go back to that, right? Well, a few things going on for us here. There is the chance of a little freezing drizzle through the overnight tonight towards tomorrow morning. Now, our main roads have been treated and tend to be in pretty good shape, but just to let you know, because some of the secondary roads, maybe your driveway, depending how you've treated it, sidewalks, just note that it could be a little bit slick in some areas. A bit of fog tonight too, so add to that a few areas where we could have some reduced visibility into the morning. Temperatures still running below seasonal, but, and it's an important but, they may be cool, but at least we're above freezing and we're actually trending upwards. So things are looking good in that sense. And kind of off and on this week, you're going to need your umbrella in many cases, although further north it gets into more of that kind of light wet snow like we were sort of seeing today as you get towards the 407 and north of that. Current temperatures sort of holding on there, 1 to 2 degrees that we're seeing with that little bit of a messy mix. It is very light in nature now, but still we're seeing some of this elsewhere. We've got cloud cover still hanging in there. And through the overnight, we'll get into some breaks and then a little bit of patchy precipitation comes back. And that's why at times it could be so light that it's really just like drizzle, but sort of freezing there on contact, and a little bit of wet snowflakes to the north of us. Into tomorrow and to the afternoon, later afternoon before the sun sets, we might get into some sunny breaks, but there is going to be quite a bit of cloud cover. Wednesday looking slightly better, although still a chance to see some showery activity there. And overnight tonight, there are those readings that are going down there close to freezing, and that's why the chance for a few areas to be a bit on the slippery side, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
A new study suggests cancer cases are rising among younger Canadians, and researchers are now considering whether certain types of cancers that are increasing could be linked to obesity rates, which are also rising. Christine Birak has more.
This study looked at cancer trends among different age groups of Canadians. And while the big picture is that overall cancer rates are decreasing, researchers also found that certain types of cancers are increasing among younger Canadians. The study examined more than 5 million cancer cases diagnosed in Canada between 1971 and 2015. They found an overall increase in cancers not normally found in young adults, including breast, colorectal, pancreatic, endometrial, and kidney cancer, with the highest increases found in women aged 30 to 39.
And what was most striking from this study?
Cancer researcher Leah Smith co-authored the study. She says those 5 cancers also have links to obesity, which is also trending upward. But Smith says this study doesn't prove cause and effect.
What this study shows is that there are some increases in the younger populations for excess weight-related cancers, but it only shows us that association. What we need to do now is to dig deeper into those findings to see, are those increases actually attributed to excess weight, and if so, what can we do to address those increases?
For Canadians over 50, researchers found a decrease in the overall rate of new cancers, likely thanks to better screening and prevention campaigns that are getting people to stop smoking and use more sunscreen, bringing down lung and melanoma cancer rates. However, researchers don't think screening younger patients is the answer.
Right now, we recommend that individuals who are under the age of 50 speak with their healthcare provider about their cancer risk, about the risks and benefits of screening to determine what is right for them. That's really a discussion for an individual to have with their healthcare provider about their risk profile more generally and what risk reduction strategies are right for them.
Doctors say having younger cancer patients in clinical trials could help in the development of new drugs. For average Canadians, knowing your family's medical history can determine whether early cancer screening is necessary. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
I feel no pressure.
Introducing the new face behind Nuit Blanche, I spoke to Julie Negum earlier today on why she's excited to take on this new role and her ideas for the festival. We'll bring you that conversation coming up. Email fraud is costing Canadians. Our Go Public team found that's leading to complaints about banks and demands that they do a better job protecting their clients. A case in point, a Calgary man was duped into asking his bank to wire $800,000 to scammers, and as Erica Johnson tells us, that's exactly what the bank did.
This isn't how Rod McLeod had planned to spend Calgary's colder months. He and his wife had hoped to be vacationing here as proud new owners of this California condo. But instead, his bank wired $800,000 for the condo to fraudsters in Denver.
It's like picking a scab. It hurts. Over and over again.
Back in October of 2018, McLeod received an email, supposedly from his realtor, giving new wiring instructions. He didn't know it was a fraud, forwarded it to his bank. Seidel, one of dozens of private banks that cater to people with big bank accounts. When Seidel got that email, it was flagged suspicious message. The retiree didn't notice, but says it should have been a red flag for his bank.
I don't do this every day. You know, this is something that's totally new to me. They do.
Fraudsters hacking into emails, impersonating realtors and other business types, tricking people and their banks into redirecting wire transfers. It's a multi-billion-dollar problem in North America. This former FBI agent turned private investigator was hired by McLeod. He was the first to notice the suspicious message warning on the fraudsters' emails. Says banks in Canada and the U.S. need new laws.
To make it a requirement of the banks to protect their customers and to ask certain things on every wire transfer and to be on the lookout a little better for this sort of thing.
McLeod is now suing his bank, alleging it should have done a better job of safeguarding his money instead of putting his snowbird dreams on ice. Seidel Bank wouldn't do an interview with Go Public, but the CEO told McLeod he was sorry for his financial loss, but said the bank was under no obligation to reimburse him since he sent the fraudster's email. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And in a written statement from Seidel, the CEO says the bank followed industry practices for wire transfers and complied with its clients' written instructions to send the money. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Today, the mayor declared 2021 as the year of public art in the city, a time to embrace and enhance Toronto's arts and culture scene.
It is my commitment that the Year of Public Art will provide significant new opportunities for Toronto's artists, which I think is fundamentally important to this, so that people can see the talent that we have, which we know exists in our city. And this will in turn take what has been a great tradition of public art and make it something that's going to be put into the spotlight.
The mayor says the project includes increasing art commissions and enhancing public access to art. Several local institutions are also partnering with the city for this project. And as part of today's announcement, the mayor also named the first ever artistic director of Nuit Blanche. Julie Negum would lead the festival for the next 2 years. She's the Canadian Research Chair in Indigenous Arts, Collaboration, and Digital Media. She's also an artist and curator who brought a massive installation to the Art Gallery of Ontario. And that's where I met her earlier today to talk about her work and her vision for Nuit Blanche. What does this appointment mean to you?
I think I feel humbled and overwhelmed and excited all at the same time. It's an amazing opportunity to kind of have a stronger continuity across Nuit Blanche in the entire GTA around thinking about how to take this incredible art exhibition where you have over 1 million people. It's the largest in North America. It's incredible. People come out to see it and witness it, so I feel no pressure.
Well, I was going to say, you're not the first Indigenous artistic director. You're just the first artistic director. Period. How will that then change our experience? Because Nuit Blanche is also expanding from this downtown, maybe a little Scarborough thing into North York, Etobicoke. You're making it even bigger and more for us to enjoy.
Not only bigger, but exciting in terms of these kind of local community hubs to get people out so that they can experience their own community, what their own kind of arts community has to offer, but at the same time get people moving into different spaces that they wouldn't normally attend. Like Scarborough had record numbers this year. Everybody was invigorated by the excitement. We're excited to move over to North York and also Etobicoke, but also thinking about all the neighborhoods for the last 14 years that have been doing incredible work and just bolstering them and giving them more opportunities.
So that's how it's going to be different. We're going to have this like hyper-local factor in Nuit Blanche.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of your artwork.
Sure. I've been really fortunate to actually be a commissioned artist for Nuit Blanche in 2017. It was called Manitobois Speaking to the Moon, and it was part of Maria Hupfield's curatorial vision. And we basically created these massive, gigantic wigwams. There were 360 projections. And so they were these kind of stunning interactions of dome structures. They were 16 feet diameter. And so people could walk around them, and there was a soundscape that also went with the work. Let's talk about this piece, specifically. I'm a child of the Commonwealth. We know the history of colonialism, and we look at this. I just can't even, just the breadth of it is incredible. Just not the size we're looking at, but the breadth of the story that's being told within this work. Well, it's such an incredible work to talk about because it's actually a Maori artist, Lisa Rehana, who looks back at 18th century French wallpaper that was entirely created by a fictional French imagination of what the Pacific looked like. And so she's taken that wallpaper as this inspiration, but recreated it into a moving image, which by far is one of the best digital media arts works in the world right now. And it tells such an important story, just what you said, that we can share as Commonwealth countries, as people who've experienced colonialism or slavery. We know that this history exists, yet there's still a reluctancy to want to tell it. And the way that she tells it in this visual narrative changes the stakes. It's still early. Nuit Blanche is a year away, but what are you hoping that people take away from the festival now that you're in charge of curating it? I think for me, the idea around having one artistic vision for the whole event is really exciting. The theme that we're going with is the space between us, so drawing connections between the circumpolar, the Pacific, and North America, and thinking about how those distances also create connections and how actually the space between us isn't that far. And you've done just an incredible job with curating this, and we're looking forward to your work at Nuit Blanche. Welcome back to Toronto, because we know you were here for OCAD. You did your PhD at York, and now you're back. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I feel like we're going to be talking again about some really cool art in our town. I hope so. Congratulations, Thanks. Doc. Congratulations. Thank you. Bit of a rainy Monday out there. Will the rest of the week be the same? We'll check in one last time with Colette after the break. Stay with us. We'll be
One of our colleagues looking at all the rain today said, wisely, it could be snow.
It could be snow,
We'll
yeah.
take it.
Close to the lakeshore, it really stayed as more showers kind of further north. It was
snow.
actually snow. It got a few centimeters in there. Tonight, a little freezing drizzle is possible as the temperature goes down to 0. I wanted to put up the 5-day forecast here since we didn't really get a chance to get to it a little bit earlier, just to show you, yes, the temperatures are going to be going up. Okay, they come down at the end, but they're going up towards midweek, closer to seasonal. This time of year, we should be around 6 to 7 degrees. So by Thursday, we get there, although it comes with showers. But backing up to tonight, again, we could have a few areas with some slick spots and a little patchy fog overnight tonight is also potential is there.
Still got to be careful, especially in the northern part of the GTA.
Precisely, and also on any of those untreated roads.
All right, that's it for us tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.